Hello, my name is Chris Ogle and welcome to what is a new series which is cooking Where Do I Start? And this has come about because talking to young people and not so young people who've not really had the benefit of kind of being around people who are cooking and now find themselves out there maybe living alone or living with a family, and they're kind of maybe even struggling for cash, and what they're doing is they're just creating meals that fill people up. They're maybe quick, they may be cheap, they may be using things which like in the old days would never have been used. So the idea of this is to get people cooking, to get people realizing that it's not that hard. You can use basic good ingredients like these things here: onion, tomatoes, garlic, and you can create some really delicious meals without really a lot of knowledge or effort. You just need some basics. Now, before we start, I am not in the most salubrious kitchen. This is a galley style kitchen. It's not one of your TV chefs places. This is a working kitchen. I use this every single day, but we're going to need some basics to get cooking. Right, we're going to need a pan. Right, now I like these woks. Right, it's not exactly a fancy wok. It's got some usage damage as well there, and it's got a lid. The lid doesn't have to fit, but this one does. Right? You're going to need a knife. You're going to need a sharp knife. This is a nice sharp knife. I look after this knife. I've got a knife sharpener, and I sharpen it twice a month because I can't abide cooking with a blunt knife. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. I've also got a small knife. This is good for peeling things, or it's good for just getting just little tiny jobs where a big knife won't work. I've also got a garlic press. Now I love garlic. Some people don't like garlic. They find it a bit antisocial. But if everyone's eating it, what's the problem? You know what I mean? So, and this is a beast. This is a pestle and mortar. It's heavy. It's solid stone. But this is amazing for crushing garlic, black pepper. I use this all the time. I much prefer it to a garlic press. It's very simple. You just get the thing in there and it's done in a flash. I will use this today, but if you've got a garlic press, it's just a bit right. So what I'm cooking today is the first video is how to cook a basic tomato sauce. Now, this sauce is very simple. It requires garlic, onion, there'll be 2 onions, and tomato, and that needs to be cooked for about an hour until the tomatoes dissolved and the onion dissolved with it. Now, that basic sauce, you can do a lot with it. You can do a spaghetti bolognese, you can do a pasta bake, you can do a chili con carne. You can use the sauce when it's completely broken down as a base for a pizza if you're making a pizza at home. Or you buy a pizza base in the shop and you can actually add your own toppings to it, and this tomato sauce can be the base when you put the cheese on top of it. So it's very, very versatile. You can even use it in some Mexican dishes. It can also be used as a starter for curry. Right, so the world is your oyster with this particular starter. So this is really something important. It can springboard into such a diverse range of different dishes that it's really one of the things you've got to get under your belt. And that's why I'm doing it first, because I think if you can do this, you can cook. Alright, so What I'm going to do is I've got a lot of different bits of tomatoes to cut up, so I'm not going to spend all the time on this video doing that. What I am going to do is I'm just going to show you some basic things about how to cut these things up, because one of the challenges is how do you actually cut vegetables up quickly and easily. So garlic, you know, you can struggle with peeling it, or you can just crush it with the back of your knife like I've done there, and then you just chop the ends off, right? And you look at that, it's just come off on its own. I've spent many an hour, right, fighting with garlic, right? But that's the simplest way. And I'm just going to cut it in half and stick it in there. I'm going to do another one. I like garlic, so that's why I'm using a couple of garlic cloves, and I'm going to be using this tomato base in a chili con carne. So we're going to have quite a big dish, so it can take a couple of cloves of garlic. There we go, chop that one in. A little baby one here as well. Get a bit fiddly when they're small. Right, so that's my garlic all sorted. I'm not going to crush it yet. I'm only going to crush it when I start to use it. Here's the onion. So I'm taking the onion, I'm going to chop the ends off. Now this is where you getting a sharp knife comes into its own, right? I'm going to just take off this very flaky. If you can't get this bit off, you're going to have to take another round off of the skin. I'll try and take as little off as possible so I can keep as much of the onion. I don't like wasting the onion for no reason. But there you go, that's that peeled, right? So clear it right out of the way. Careful with the knives. Right, so I'm going to then chop it down the centre. And then turn it to the side, and I'm going to cut through the onion like this. Right, and turn it the other way, line it all up, and then I'm just going to slice through the onion. Now this is where it gets a bit slippery, you see, that's why you need a good knife. And that's it, that's half my onion done. Move that out of the way, and this is why I quite like having a decent sized chopping board. You get one of them little small ones like this, right? Before you know it, it's like it's full up. So I quite like to have a big chopping board because I can do more on it. Right, so same again, and you'll notice I'm keeping my finger on top of the piece I've just cut, and the reason for that is because if I don't, there's a tendency for it to come out with the knife, and then I haven't got it all in a line, and it makes it a bit more difficult, fiddly to chop up. So, and then again, and what you'll see here, I'll just show you, is you'll see that the lines of the onion rings, and the way I've chopped it means that the onion just breaks up into little bits. Look, just chop, and that's what you want. You want it because you want it to fry up in the pan, and for it to essentially dissolve and all of that lovely onion flavour to go into the dish with no big bits. Right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up a tomato. Now these are lovely big beefy tomatoes out of the garden. So you get your tomato, you cut it down the centre, And then what you do is you put it on the one side and then you just cut it again down the centre, and then again put it on the side, and then you just chop it like so. Get the other bit, same principle, like that. And then if you don't like this big chunky bit, you can get rid of it, stick it in the bin, and then you just proceed to chop it into bits. Now you can boil these tomatoes up and get the skins to come off and all that, but to be honest, we're now cutting the tomatoes into such small bits that the skins are almost unnoticeable, and I never take the skins off. I can't be bothered. It's too much like hard work. It's not a restaurant. We're cooking for ourselves here, and as long as it's really tasty and enjoyable and not too much effort, everyone wins. Again, take this funny bit off the middle, especially in a beefy tomato, these, and then this one, same again. Okay, slice them up. Now, I know it's difficult to believe, but I've never been on a cookery course ever. So it looked, I know I'm rubbish at cutting up stuff. It doesn't matter though, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're all amateurs unless we've been working in kitchens, and this is really basic kitchen stuff. You know, like we're not professionals here. We're just trying to make cooking fun. And at the end of it, I can't believe that you can take some of these really quite basic things and you can turn it into something that's really tasty and enjoyable to eat. That for me is the miracle of cooking, and why I want to do this is because, you know, to be able to do this and actually end up enjoying something. Quite often if you make like a paper card or something, some craft work, yeah, it looks nice, but you can't eat it. For me, eating something at the end of making it is like just a holy grail. It's like I did it and I ate it and it was nice. so there you go. So I'm now going to cook up, going to cut up the rest of these tomatoes and onions, and then we'll come back and we'll start to assemble this sauce. Welcome back. I've now chopped up all the tomatoes, quite a lot of tomatoes there because I like them, and there's a couple of onions in there, and I've got some butter out. Now you might want to use sunflower oil, vegetable oil. I like using butter. I put the pan on the electric hob here. Now I prefer gas, but you have to deal with what you've got, I'm afraid, and I got electric, which I don't particularly like, but there you go. So I'm going to whack a little dollop of butter in there, maybe just a tad more, and while that melts, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe this. It's all full of tomato. Wipe that up. I've got a spatula here, a trusty wooden spatula. This one's from my mum's. You're going to need something either plastic or wood for this type of thing, because you don't want to scratch, like I have, your wok or your Teflon coated, whatever it is. Okay, so now here's my garlic in here, and I'm gonna just crush that up. And the smell from this, the garlic scent is absolutely divine. So just going to crush it up. That'll do. I'm not going to make it into some kind of liquid. I can just scrape it off. And scoop it out. This thing you can crush spices, you can crush black pepper, you can crush chili, you know, you can crush you know, peanuts. They are really, really good. They're heavy, but they're really good. Right, here goes my butter is starting to sizzle, so in goes my garlic. Now I don't want to be really cooking this on a high heat. I just want to be cooking this slowly, because the slower you cook this tomato sauce, the deeper the flavour somehow, and the sweeter. But we do want to just sizzle this up. One of the pleasures of cooking, if you can really, you know, get into it, is the smells and the enjoyment. You know, like if you smell a nice perfume or you smell a nice essential oil. When you're the olfactory system, if you start to enjoy the smells of garlic, onion, tomato, black pepper when you're cooking, you know, like it's just it's not a chore. It's just so amazing. And then you can start throwing wine in, and there's like one for the pot, one for me. You know, you can make a real, you know, this becomes a real hobby, a pleasurable experience. And I know if you're watching this and you're thinking, what on earth is he talking about? This is like the worst thing ever. I'm just watching this because I want to cook some food quickly and get the job done, and at least know I'm eating something which is good for me. I'm never going to get into a situation where I like it. Trust me, if you start to really feel the benefit of eating good, solid, home-cooked food, you will start to appreciate what you're doing here. Right, in goes the onions. Whoops. You know, and I always save these old boxes, you know, for that you get things in, because, you know, they're handy for stuff like this where, you know, you've chopped up some onions and you need to put them somewhere. So always good to have one or two of those lying around somewhere. You know, I got a whole stack of them, and you can never have enough vessels in the kitchen. So these are just sizzling very, very slowly. You want to get them all coated with the oil. Well, I'm going to turn that up a little bit, just so that, that's the problem with electric cooking. If you're cooking on an electric cooker, it's not instantaneous. It takes a little while to catch up with you. Now, one of the things it says in cookery books quite often is, it says cook the onions until they're golden brown. What is that exactly? I don't think I've ever seen onions go golden brown. I don't know what they mean by that, but what I do know is that it doesn't really matter a whole load. You just don't want them burned, right? So if you're cooking these up at the speed I am, you can probably hear them sizzling away. It's going to take 4 to 5 minutes for them to be all nice and shiny, which means they're sweating off the oils that are in them. They're just starting to get excited and come out, and that's that beautiful smell that you can, when it goes from a stinging, hurting my eyes type smell to one of, I want some of those on my hot dog or my burger, barbecue, you know, that lovely oniony smell. And they're just about getting there now. You can see the probably the steam coming off them. Got the window open here, so there's a little bit of a cool draft coming in, and they're starting to get mushy. So they're starting to slide off each other. See, when it starts to happen, they start to slide off each other. Slide down, you pile them up and they start to slide down all by themselves. That's when you know you're kind of at the right place. So now I'm going to put the tomatoes in. So pour these in. Look at that lot. Now you might say to yourself, how many tomatoes do I need for every onion? You know, like, well, do you know what? It don't really matter. You know, if you've got more tomatoes, you're going to have more liquid and it's going to be more tomatoey. But you can always reduce it down by just leaving it on the oven for on the hob for longer and letting the juice just evaporate over time. So it really doesn't matter. I don't think you need to start getting into exact sciences. I think, you know, if when you're cooking, you don't want to have the cookery book out all the time trying to work out exact ingredients. And do you know what, this is a funny thing, and I've always, you know, because I'm no exact person and I'm no perfectionist, right? But when you've cooked something and you follow the recipe, right, how do you know it tastes how it's supposed to taste? Right, you can't eat the cookery book to find out what it's supposed to taste like, right? So it's always a best guess, isn't it? Always. So if it's never going to be exact, don't get hung up on it. If it's edible and you enjoy it and you say to yourself at the end of it, do you know what, I really enjoyed that, I'll make that again, then that's the best you can hope for. The next time you make it, you'll go, oh, that tastes a little bit different to last time, but it was still delicious, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the third time it won't be the same as the second time. When I was cooking for my mum and for my daughter, you know, they say, oh, can you make that chilli again? Right? They couldn't even remember what the last chilli tasted like. So when I cook the next chilli, all they know is it tasted nice again. But it didn't taste like the last chilli because I'd probably used some leftovers, some something else in it. And what I'm trying to get across to you is it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You just got to get into realising that, you know, the way we can live a nice, happy, healthy life is by feeding our bodies with what it needs, the right minerals, vitamins and nutrients. And we don't get that from the ready meals. We don't get that from fast food. We have to do it ourselves. So, you know, these are some really basic skills that we all need. And it really isn't hard either. It's just super simple. And when this is finished, you look at that there. You look at that there. When that, right, you see the colour of it. You see the nature of it, right? When we come back in an hour's time, this won't look like this. It will look the deeper red. You won't see the tomato pieces and the onions in the same way, and it will be darker, and it'll have all just molded together. And the longer you leave it, the deeper and more intense that becomes. But the the thing is that you know, you just leave this cooking on a low temperature. I'm going to turn it down in a minute to a low temperature, and I'll put the lid on because I don't want it to evaporate. I want it to steam on in its own heat here, and it means I can turn it down even more because it's going to keep the heat in there, and the juice is just going to be delicious. So that's it for the moment. I'm going to turn it down, I'm going to put the lid on, and we're just going to leave it, and we'll come back later. So this tomato sauce has been going for about an hour and a half now, and you can see the consistency of it's got nice and thick. And you can see how it's not running anymore. It's actually quite a bit thicker. Now what you can do, and I have done this, is I took the lid off a little bit and just turn the heat up a little bit, just to reduce the liquid a little bit. Now this is a really nice smell. You know, this is the sort of thing you can put onto a pizza base and you know it's just going to taste divine. It really is a good base for all sorts of things. It tastes really, really nice and it smells absolute heaven. So what you can do with this now, if you've made up 3 onions and you put in more tomato, you could divide this up into 2 pots, and you could put it in the freezer as 2 separate entities, because you're only going to need, you know, like a 400ml can of this sauce per dish, and there's probably about 600ml in this already. So if you put a little bit more in, you could have made up effectively 2 tins of, or 2 jars of sauce, which would then suit you for 2, you know, like a spaghetti bolognese or a lasagna or whatever you want to make. This time of year, we're now September the 16th, this time of year is ideal. People have got loads of tomatoes. Go out there and hoover up all these tomatoes, because you'll be really grateful in the winter when you've got this lovely sauce, homemade garden produce sauce, and you can just bring them out of the freezer, and they actually improve in the freezer with age. The taste gets even more intense. So tip from the top there, but lovely sauce and delightful in lots of different dishes. So that's it for the tomato base.